A to Z Acts of Worship in Islam Part 2. Ghusl. When is a person required to take a bath, which is called ghusl? Ghusl, in Arabic, is the act of washing something with water. As an Islamic term, it is an act of worship which involves washing the entire body with water, in a specific manner. Ghusl is required in 6 situations. 1. After sexual intercourse. 2. After an orgasm or a wet dream. 3. After a woman finishes her menstrual cycle. 4. After a woman finishes her postpartum bleeding. 5. After a non-Muslim accepts Islam. 6. And after a Muslim dies, he or she must be washed. How is ghusl performed? There are 2 types of ghusl. 1. The ghusl which fulfills the minimum requirements. 2. The complete ghusl which fulfills the minimum requirements as well as all the recommended acts. As for the ghusl which fulfills the minimum requirements, then it includes 2 things. 1. Having the correct intention before beginning. One should intend to either pray, or remove their major spiritual impurity with this ghusl. 2. Washing the entire body with water, which includes rinsing inside the mouth and nose. One must be sure the water reaches all of the areas that are difficult for water to reach, such as in between the legs, one's armpits and navel, the roots of the hair, and so forth. As for the complete ghusl which fulfills the minimum requirements and all the recommended acts, then it was described by the Prophet's wife, Maymunah, may Allah be pleased with her. It was narrated that Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said, when the Messenger of Allah did ghusl for janabah, he would wash his hands and do wudu as for prayer, then he would wash himself, then he would run his fingers through his hair. Then when he thought that the water, had reached his skin, he would pour water over it, the head 3 times, then he would wash the rest of his body. Bukhari. Note, a woman does not have to undo her braids when performing ghusl as long as she soaks the roots of her hair, and as long as she washes the outer parts of her hair. Menstruation. When a woman is on her period, what is permissible and what is to be avoided? In this section we will cover the rules related to a woman's menstrual cycle and postpartum bleeding, God willing. A woman can have 3 types of vaginal bleeding. 1. The first is called haid, which is menstrual blood. This usually comes once a month, usually for 6 or 7 days. 2. The second is called nifas, which is postpartum bleeding, blood which a woman gets after the delivery of her child. 3. The third is called istihada, which is blood that comes out due to some other reason. Menses. Once a woman gets her period, she is not permitted to do the following things. 1. Pray. A woman cannot pray during menses, nor can she make them up later. 2. Fast. A woman cannot fast during her menses, but she must make up the obligatory fasts of Ramadan later. 3. Tawaf. A woman cannot make tawaf around the Kaaba while on her menses. 4. Touch the Mushaf, written copy of the Arabic Quran. A menstruating woman cannot not touch the Mushaf without a barrier. She is allowed to recite the Quran and remember Allah. 5. Stay in the masjid. 6. Intercourse. However, other intimate relations are permitted. As for anal intercourse, then this is strictly prohibited at all times. 7. Divorce. Her husband is not allowed to divorce her during her period. However, if he does so, for any reason, it will count as a valid divorce. Prohibitions related to a woman's period. Everything else that is normally allowed is allowed for her during her period. Period blood is usually darker than normal blood, it may have a stronger odor, and it may thicken or clot. If there is any brown or yellow discharge in the beginning or the end of her cycle, this also counts as part of her period. Her period is not over until she sees clear discharge that has no color, or if she places a tissue inside, it should consistently come out clean without any discharge or color. Once a woman finishes her period, she must take a complete shower, also known as ghusl, as we discussed in the previous episode. After her period ends and before showering, none of the above-mentioned prohibitions become permissible, except for fasting and divorce. Once a woman's period finishes, a minimum of 13 days must pass before her next period. If she sees blood before that, then this is abnormal bleeding, or istihada as we mentioned, and not her period. Istihada. The maximum period is 15 days and nights. If she continues bleeding after this bleeding is called istihada, or extra and abnormal blood. In such a case, she must shower at the end of the 15 days, wash her private part, pad herself well, make wudu for every prayer, and pray. None of the above prohibitions previously mentioned related to her or to her husband apply to a woman with istihada. However, if she enters the masjid, she must be sure to be well padded so that blood does not get anywhere in the masjid. If the blood continues to the next month, then she looks at her last cycle, and considers that time to be her period, and anything past it is istihada. If her last period started at the beginning of the month and lasted for 7 days, then her next period would be at the beginning of the next month for 7 days. A woman who is pregnant cannot have her period. If she bleeds before delivery, even during her contractions, this is neither period blood nor postpartum blood. She should just wash it off, pad herself, and perform wudu. She should continue praying as normal. If she cannot bear praying while standing, then she can pray sitting down. Nifas. Once a woman delivers her child, she will normally experience postpartum bleeding up to 6 weeks. This is called nifas. It takes the same exact rulings as menses, whether it applies to her or her husband. The maximum nifas is 40 days and nights from the time of delivery. If her bleeding ends before that, then she must shower and pray and is considered pure. If it comes back during that 40-day period, then it is also from her nifas. If she continues bleeding past 40 days, she must shower at the end of the 40 days, and that extra blood is considered istihada. Thus she would wash her private part, pad herself well, and make wudu for every prayer, and pray. With this we end the rules related to purity. Alhamdulillah. In the case where the woman miscarries, there are 2 situations. 1. If the fetus had developed human features, such as hands, feet, face, etc., then the blood that comes out is considered nifas, postpartum bleeding, and all of the rules of nifas apply. 2. If the fetus had not developed human features, then the blood that comes out is not considered nifas. None of the rules of nifas apply, rather the rules of istihada, or abnormal blood.